All right, guys, welcome to our latest episode of the Fake Nerd Book Club series. This time, we are not continuing with the Pride. If you came here looking for the Pride Volume 2, sorry. We are
still
now,
available on Comicsology Original. Check it out.
That is true. We are now going with Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Volume 1, the first 5 issues collected because the 0 issue is in this volume. This is now collected, written by Kyle Higgins, with art by Hendry Prasetya. I tried to practice this beforehand, but I failed. Matt Herms did the colors, and Ed Dukeshire did the letters. And it's got backup stories by Steve Orlando, Corin Howell, Jeremy Lawson on the colors, and Jim Campbell on letters.
Heck yeah.
So let's just get right into it. First volume, Boom Studios, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. What do we think?
I think the art is spectacular.
Yeah.
I don't think you get enough story in these 4 issues for me to really super connect. And the only reason I do have a good connection is because I'm familiar with the original source material. Besides that, I think it's a super cool introduction. I actually found myself enjoying the backup stories more because they're a little more fun. And Steve Orlando really has a good good voice for those characters, I think. I think it's good. This sounds negative. I think it's really good. I just think it starts kind of slow for what I know, because I've read this. I've read a lot of this. I know where it goes, and I just forgot how slow it kind of starts for me.
Right. Ben?
I had a great time. Like Ryan, I was also familiar with, I wasn't familiar with the Power Rangers comic books. Obviously, of course, I grew up with the show. All 4 of us grew up with the show, and we remember those 5 episodes. Where are the Sparks? You weren't familiar with Power Rangers as a kid?
Nope. I mean, I knew they existed, but I didn't watch Power Rangers.
Never mind.
Am I not today, please?
Fox Kids, baby.
Yeah. Oh God, I remember those. But I mean, so reading these issues of the Power Rangers, I do agree that things do kind of start off a little slow, but I love where they start is right after Tommy joins the team as the Red Ranger. He's out of Rita Repulsa's influence.
Who?
Excuse me?
Yeah, Tommy.
What Ranger?
The Power Rangers. The Green Ranger.
What Ranger?
The Green Ranger joins the team.
That's right.
You said the Red Ranger.
Oh, yeah. I said the Red Ranger? Shit.
In fairness, Tommy does eventually become a Red Ranger.
That's Zeo, though. That's way down the line. So the Green Ranger joins the team, and oh God, well, I had a train of thought. Damn it, I lost it. Other than I still liked it. I had a fun time.
Sparks, do you want to say your thoughts?
I agree. I echo a lot of what Ryan said. I thought that the artwork was really good. I honestly don't even remember the 0 issue at this point.
The beginning story was like only a couple pages.
It was very bland.
It was just setting up the crystal.
I found it kind of bland, and I'm like, boy, if this is the whole book. I mean, like, it's the same. It's the same writer, but it felt just weaker. It didn't launch me into anything, and I'm like, I almost prefer I hadn't read the issue 0. But the rest of it is good. There's a level of, I feel like we're at a point where you can get away from the way the Power Rangers is written for television for children when you're writing a comic like this, and it still sounds like the Power Rangers talking like uncomplicated teenagers in a way where it's 4 issues, so it's very hard to judge, but like them as people, I don't really have a read on, other than like Jason's the leader and Kim's the kind of empathetic person, and Billy's got tech, and that's what he's about. And the black guy is like, I don't trust the other guy, and that's his character. And I'm like, there's not a lot, but I'm not a Power Rangers person.
Yeah.
But I mean, if that's the point, is to appeal to, if part of it is to engage a fan base that isn't as familiar with Power Rangers, it's hard. It's hard to get 100% into it if you don't know anything, like aren't invested in the Power Rangers, which I am not.
Yeah, I dropped off pretty hard with the Power Rangers as I got older. A lot of us did. But Mighty Morphin was a show that I watched religiously as a child, and Tommy was always my favorite. Who didn't love the bad boy Green Ranger?
I just like because green was my favorite color, and also he had a dragon.
Yeah. So I definitely brought in my own familiarity there, and I will echo the art is gorgeous. I love the artwork. That for me, that was the major takeaway, was how much I like the artwork. But I also kind of found myself. By the way, Sparks, real quickly before I continue, I agree. The characterizations aren't quite there. You don't really understand a lot of the characters' motivations, and you don't get a read on them right away. And that's hurt by the fact that this is only 4 issues.
It's also just like, it feels like Tommy can think in a way that is more like a real person, and everyone else kind of talks like a children's cartoon.
Sure.
Whereas Tommy sounds like a person. And I'm like, that's a little jarring when like everyone else is having conversations either to or about Tommy. And I'm like, y'all sound like a G.I. Joe special. And then Tommy will come in and Tommy will be like, I sound like a person.
Yeah, I understand that. I totally see that too. Well, one of the things I do really like is it's kind of how I've always wanted to see the Power Rangers tackled in general. Just tonally speaking, it is like, it still retains it's Morphin time, call the Zords, things like that. It still retains that goofiness, but it also does try to bring it up to a more adult level while still trying to balance the goofy tone that is inherent with the Power Rangers. And tonally speaking, this is kind of what I've always wanted to see from the Power Rangers.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why I connected with it right away.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Because one of the things I love about this book is how the Power Rangers are written, how their tone is. Because I remember a few years ago there was a new Power Rangers book that came out that was written exactly like the '90s show was, and the '90s show, it was like goofy dialogue, just balls to the walls, just crazy goofy stuff that we remember seeing in the '90s. And reading how these kids, I mean, yes, they, like what Brandon said, they still keep Jason saying, "We need to Megazord power now." And they're all saying it's Morphin time, and they're doing all their stuff. That stuff is fine, but just how these kids are, I feel like they're talking like actual teenagers. I dig that. Like, I like how
there was one person. There was one person that I was shocked at the characterization didn't line up with what I remembered, and I want to be clear what I remember of the characterization. It's Rita. Rita doesn't read like the Rita I remember, and I want to be very clear. It's I remember because I haven't seen the show in God knows how long.
Yeah, Rita.
I thought Rita was more like menacing in this one, more like conniving and less like
it's she's not the classic after 10,000 years I'm free.
Yeah,
she's
but
not
I read
like super high pitched
in that voice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
Oh God,
I also don't remember Scorpina. I don't remember that character at all.
I actually do. I actually had a bit of a crush on her when I was a kid. Yeah, I like Scorpina.
She's a bad lady. I can relate to them.
She's a very bad lady, but I actually kind of.
That was probably my favorite part of the 4 issues is when she shows up in Tommy's home. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, this doesn't feel like something I usually see in Power Rangers.
Yeah.
Now I'm excited and I'm interested.
Like Scorpina is threatening to kill Tommy's mom, and Tommy's like, oh, hell no. And he takes her out to the woods, and then they start fighting. It's like, oh, this is some cool stuff right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that sequence a lot.
This gives me something that we recently reviewed, not nearly to the extreme, but this is giving me some of the Transformers War for Cybertron vibes, where it does want to dive deeper into shit, but it's not willing to actually go there. And I know it goes there later. With the stuff that's leading up to is the stuff that we're trying to get to, and we just have to get through the beginning stuff, unfortunately, because the stuff that we get to is really dope. It's just I kind of wish we get there a little faster.
Right. It's the groundwork taking too long.
Yeah,
I will say, just like, this isn't a critique of the comic, but as far as they do trade collections, that is a horrible place to cut off your story. Is at the end of issue 4, I'm like, no, now I'm
where
really interested.
That evil Megazord shows up.
Yeah, and I'm like, this is, you got me in. Like, that was frustrating.
It makes me wonder. Like, I'm sure Kyle Higgins had the plan of like, you have to start at the beginning. You can't just start with the Lord Drakkon alternate future stuff. I kind of just wish it did, just a little bit, because. Like, if you know where it's going, it's awesome. And when I was reading this, I'm glad I stuck with it while I did, because I was enjoying it enough. And it was the first time I was reading it, right? Rereading it now, I'm like, oh man, I just want to power through this so we can get to the good stuff.
Yeah.
This is my first time reading this, because when I got to that cliffhanger, I'm like, damn it, I really want to know what happens. Because that design of that monster, whatever that is, it looks really freaking cool.
I like the design work a lot. The artist is the art work not only just looks good, but the designs for the new monsters I think look really cool.
He reminds me of Dan Mora, the Klaus guy.
Yep.
Like that
100%.
cartoon. Like, man, that, like, honestly, if the art wasn't as good, I probably wouldn't like this book as much. But I think the art is like it works so well for both the people and the Zords. I loved looking at this book. I did not mind looking at it at all.
I'm trying to get Dan Mora though. Speaking of Dan Mora though, he has done the Power Rangers titles. He did Go-Go Power Rangers, which is the spinoff to this one, and
he's doing a lot of covers right now.
Yeah, and you showed us the Dragon Ball art that he did on Twitter.
Yeah,
I want him to do a Dragon Ball book.
That dude's style
happened.
That dude's style works so well for so many things. Yeah.
So I just want to point out one of my favorite panels, or it's one of my pages. It's the page with the Dragon Zord under the water.
Yeah.
I mean, it just A, it looks gorgeous. B, it also reminds me of Godzilla a whole lot.
Yeah.
But even when I also love how just all the Zords, how they're drawn. Especially one of my favorite sequences is when Tommy is a dream sequences when him and Trini are like they're doing that scan, and Tommy hallucinates how the Dragon Zord comes out, and the Dragon Zord is fighting the Saber-toothed Tiger Zord.
Yeah.
I mean,
I like a lot of that kind of alternate dream sequences when he's fighting against the Dragon Zord and he can't control it, and then it culminates to it does happen towards the end of the book that the Dragon Zord does go rogue. I like a lot of that stuff. I think that stuff is really cool.
I agree,
and it shows that the main focus, and going back to what Sparks was talking about with like all the characters not really feeling like characters except for Tommy. Tommy is the main focus of this book. And I think probably too much, because I would have liked to have seen more from the other Rangers, some more of Billy, or some. You would get a sense of what Billy is, but we don't really get enough of it. I would have liked to see more of that, but Tommy is the main focus of these 4 issues.
Yeah.
Especially when you're someone.
We got a visitor.
Especially when you're someone who's coming into it with only the passing information. Like, I know plenty about Power Rangers, but I don't know, like, it's not back of my head knowledge,
Sure.
I'd have to go like look up most of it again. And coming to the book, it's hard to be invested in these characters I'm not actually familiar with. Like, the most familiar I am with Power Rangers as a team right now would be the latest movie, and none of these characters are those characters. So I'm like, I don't know how I can't connect to these guys, and it's frustrating when it feels like everybody is written on a surface level to be very like they don't really engage in real conversations about Tommy or with Tommy. Until it's forced. Yeah. And since that's the point of the book, it really frustrated me that I'm like, these are just, this is where like the writing was just falling apart for me on those characters. Like, I couldn't really care about when Tommy wasn't around, because Tommy felt like the only real character.
Yeah. I totally understand. I totally get what you're talking about.
I'm just going to talk about that backup comic real quick. The Bulk and Skull Want to Be Superheroes. I think it's great. It's just like a couple pages every issue of Steve Orlando writing great character work of this Bulk and Skull wanting to impress the Power Rangers, and they have like a Power Rangers TV station, and then they see a couple girls playing basketball, and they're like, "Yo, we're gonna impress them," and they like kidnap a putty, and they're like, "We're superheroes now," and they completely fall apart, and they set the monster loose, and they have to save them, and it's like, I just thought it was a cute little backup story that
putty being in a trench coat and a hat just disguised is so funny.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. I thoroughly enjoyed the back end comics.
I wish. I mean, I guess the whole book can't be that humorous when you're dealing with like some of the stuff it's dealing with, but like I definitely wish it had more of a comedic tone like those backup issues.
Right.
I just like how the first page of that backup book is where Bulk and Skull are in the principal's office, and if you see on his computer screen, he's looking up for more toupees to buy, and as he's slamming his fist on his desk, his hair is falling off.
That's funny. That's a pretty funny monologue he gives. Yeah.
Speaking of Bulk and Skull, them as the opening of issue 1, I really liked.
Yeah.
I thought that was really good.
Yeah.
And that was one of the times where I was really grateful for the issue 0, because it had the beginning of the background comic, and I'm like, oh, I know who these guys are.
Yeah.
Kind of. I that's the thing. I understood Bulk and Skull better than most of the Power Rangers as characters with how they were written throughout these books. And that's not how it should be.
Yeah, I get that. I
don't
disagree.
Focusing on 2 people instead of like a whole team.
For sure.
But like, still, it's a little bit. It's a problem a little bit.
don't think I would give it as much flack on that end if there weren't so many parts where Tommy isn't around and it's just about the other Rangers talking about Tommy, and I'm like, you gotta give me more than that on them. It's hard. I think it's hard when you are transferring something like Power Rangers, where really when you're watching the show, I would argue it's kind of similar to when you're a kid watching Godzilla. It's really all about the action scenes with the big things, or even the fight scenes with the little putty men and the Power Rangers, and that's really what you're watching. And that's what you're there for. And that's usually what they're catering to. So it's not very complex outside of that. But when you switch it to a comic, and I would say the same thing about most Godzilla comics, you have to make there be something more concrete to latch onto in the characterization department of whoever you're following. And I don't feel like this opening volume nails that. It's kind of like, the art's beautiful, but it is very much like, you got to give me more than what I feel like the average Power Rangers episode is going to give me as far as characters.
Yeah, I almost considered going further because I knew this volume ended on issue 4, right?
Yes, 4.
Yeah, 4. I knew that this volume ended on issue 4 reading it, and I almost considered going further and seeing if that would have been, I decided not to, but I do kind of wonder if maybe a full 6 issues would have been more preferable to just this trade collection.
It's interesting.
Would you get a sense of the characterization then? I wonder. I don't know.
Yeah, and it's not the standard, but most volumes of arcs of comics are 4 issues.
Yeah,
like that's not. You just need more issues to really tell a full story, especially with a 0 issue that doesn't really set up anything. I just there wasn't a lot. There's not a lot to grab onto.
The only thing the 0 issue really set me up for is that when we see Goldar later, and he's isolated.
Goldar.
I understand that, Goldar was there at the fight with the Green Ranger, and he's the reason that he lost. So
Goldar's my favorite. Yeah, he's a big weird.
But I would agree, because I think that the issue is not necessarily even would it improve the characterization, but once you hit issue 4, the Rangers finally at least start talking with Tommy in a different way. They start expanding on who they are a little bit more, and the action of what's happening gets more interesting. But then it cuts you off at the knees right at that point, and I'm like, that's a terrible way to end this trade. That is a terrible way to end this trade.
I really liked Rita in Tommy's ear.
Yeah.
I like that stuff a whole lot.
It reminded me a lot of Scorpio in Farscape.
Yeah. Good call.
That is a reference I don't know.
That's a good reference.
I don't understand that reference.
Puppets, baby.
Farscape's a really good show, and there's a whole section where one of the villains actually just becomes, everyone assumes he's dead, and he's actually just invaded the mind of not really him, but like a chip that represents him as a image in the hero's mind, constantly is like second guessing him for like a whole season of the show. And it was a lot like that.
That's cool. Right. I always kind of like that trope of the villain in the hero's ear, and you're not too sure if it is in fact Rita or if it's just a manifestation of what Rita is until Tommy basically says, "No, you're my doubts. You're everything I hate about me that I'm trying to expunge." And I almost kind of wish they had kept it ambiguous even towards the end, but I really liked it. I really liked how that.
I don't even think they necessarily needed to keep it ambiguous, but they needed to make it a little more of a progression rather than a sudden, like, nobody just goes, "Oh, I get it. You're me. F you. I'm good now." And then he goes to the team later and he's even like, "Guys, it's fine. I fixed it. I figured it out." It's like nobody does that in like a half hour, bro.
Yeah.
I wish that like Trini telling him to talk to it had come up earlier, and Tommy had more directly confronted it earlier in the issues, and it slowly would have progressed to him being able to overcome it.
Yeah.
In fact, I wish it kind of was like Scorpio and Farscape, because what happens is that the main character Crichton basically is constantly just arguing and shutting down, and usually in a humorous way. Once he's gotten past Scorpio, it's not that the voice stops being there; he's just better at outmatching it.
I dig it.
Yeah. So yeah, I would have liked to have been slightly better handled, but I still really enjoyed it. I thought it was some good character work on Tommy's part. Yeah, I think Tommy is just the standout of this whole volume. He's supposed to be, but I like everything. I like a lot that they did with him.
By design, yeah. It's speaking as a person with the least amount of Power Rangers experience. It's hard to dive into this.
Sure.
It's not an easy slide in. You are on some level expected to have some familiarity with this specific iteration of the Power Rangers, which I do not. Not enough to feel like I'm comfortable, and I think that's tough. I kind of would have preferred a from the ground up approach.
Like an origin?
That's me. Yeah.
Similar to how Boom Studios is currently tackling Buffy, perhaps.
I mean, like, look, honestly, I would have preferred the most recent Power Rangers movie. That kind of, like, I loved meeting the team the way we did in that movie. That's how I feel I could have gotten into this comic a little more eased into it and more familiar with everybody, is that kind of approach. I understand why they don't do that. I understand why it is the way it is. It's just hard.
I totally get that.
Yeah, even when, cause it's been years, probably decades since I last seen the 5 episodes where Tommy and the Power Rangers are fighting when he's under Rita's spell. So because when I'm reading this and then they're talking about how Tommy used to be a bad guy, it took me a second to be like, oh, that's right, he was the bad guy.
That was the biggest deal. Real quickly, just a nostalgia bait, whatever. That was the biggest deal as a kid when Tommy showed up on Power Rangers.
Yeah, totally.
Like that was everything everyone was talking about at school and shit. Like, just like, oh my god, did you see how cool the Green Ranger is? And he's a bad guy and he's a ranger. Like, that was just like the shit back then.
Not his school.
Not his school. But
not his. Yeah.
Still,
it was a big pop culture moment.
I believe you guys.
Yeah.
Because that was
or
like even when the White Ranger shows up.
The White Ranger, yeah, and it's revealed to be Tommy, and you have the White Tiger Zord. It's like, oh, that's so cool.
Real quickly, so Super Sentai, we all know that Power Rangers is taken from a series called Super Sentai in Japan. Super Sentai has been going since the 70s. In what is the quote-unquote Mighty Morphin Power Rangers version of Super Sentai, the Green and the White Ranger are actually different characters. Right. The Green Ranger dies, and then the White Ranger shows up, and it's a different character. And I thought that was interesting.
Man, that whole, like, I want to be the guy making that Power Rangers show. Like, all right, we're going to give you a bunch of, like, 20-year-old Japanese footage. Make that into a 90s kid show. Like, what? That's awesome. I still commend Power Rangers for, like, working as
Did
well
you
as
see,
they did.
Did you see the Toys That Made Us Power Rangers episode?
I did, yeah.
I don't think so.
So
I would like to
really
rewatch
great.
it.
It's really great. It does talk about the history of how Power Rangers came to be on TV and how Saban was just like an idiot with it. He was just like, wait, we can just take the fights and then film our own shit.
Yeah. And even though the characters don't match like the heights of the Power Rangers or when like
the Yellow Ranger is a boy in the Super Sentai footage.
Yeah, nobody. You're 7. You don't know. You can't tell.
Yeah. I always found that funny.
It took like, I don't know what was the first show to be fully American produced, but it took a long time before we were doing our own Power Rangers show.
It was a long time.
It was like 20 years for real. Like it's like recent, I think.
Yeah, because the Power Ranger shows I remember growing up heavily were obviously Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. I watched a little bit of Turbo. I watched the movie just because Tommy was in Turbo. And I was like, oh my god, the original Green Ranger and White Ranger. He's there. But what I heavily got into, like I was watching it after school every day, was Power Rangers Lost Galaxy. I freaking
I like Space Rangers. I'm a fan of Space Rangers.
They put Jason David Frank in every Power Rangers show they could do because of how popular he was. And he would constantly show up as a different Ranger in every iteration. And it would kind of be like this whole thing. They were trying to make a continuity with the whole thing because Super Sentai was so heavily continuitized. I always found that really funny that, oh, here's a Red Ranger special with us all the Red Rangers. Jason David Frank's there.
Because he's the Red Ranger in Zeo and he's the Red Ranger in Turbo.
He gets those clicks. Yep. Yeah.
No, I always like the episodes where they would take the previous Rangers and put them in episode for a team up.
Yeah, those are always fun.
Like I remember in Lost Galaxy where you saw the original Power Rangers in space, like their risk communicators. All the team, there's just like there, then all the hands go and they grab their singular one, and then just show up and it's like, oh, this is awesome.
The first movie. The Power Rangers, the movie, not the Ooze one, but the first movie is, probably the Ooze one. I totally remember, but that was completely American created. It's our suits, it's our footage. There's no Japanese footage in that.
The one with Ivan Ooze.
Ivan Ooze is dope. That dude's dope as hell. That actor's dope as hell.
That I did see it.
Yeah, that was the first Power Rangers thing that was completely American produced with no Japanese footage.
I had that on VHS.
like a 45-minute documentary on YouTube about the making of that movie. You guys should watch it. It's very fascinating. It's a bunch of TV people not knowing how to make a movie.
I would love to watch.
Well, yeah,
that.
they blow their entire budget on the skydiving scene.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to the comic.
Yeah, back to the comic book.
I just wanna get to the good stuff because I know it's there.
Yeah.
I know not that this isn't good, but like it sets up like you.
It's very standard.
It's very standard, yes. Like it sets up like Tommy, you cause the apocalypse, and he's like, "What do you mean?" And then 50 more issues of this comic come out.
Yeah, like I said, the moment that really pulled me out and went, "Oh, this is not like Power Rangers usually is," was Scorpina showing up in his bedroom, and I'm like, "Oh dang, we're gonna do some stuff like this." I'm super into it because I think it does need to do more with like what the characters are like on the ground away from the suits. Kind of more like the recent movie and how we talked about like that part was excellent, and when they got to the fighting, they weren't so good.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's still crazy to me.
It's still crazy.
Yeah,
I think sadly there isn't a lot of meat on this volume 1 bone. But
No,
I think
the
but I
4
think
issue
we're-
really cuts you down.
yeah, so I think we're all pretty much willing to continue, correct?
yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's not a lot of meat on these bones, but I was enjoying reading what I had.
Yeah, I
But
like that.
the one thing that really wants me to continue on is kind of like the cliffhanger. It's the carrot. It's the carrot of that villain of him saying, "I've been looking to destroy you for a long time." And it's like, who was that guy? I want to know who that is. I flip the page. It's the Bulk and Skull stuff at the end. I'm like, damn it, they got me.
Yeah. I will like slightly just critique this in that if I were just a person who thought about it, honestly, when this started coming out, who just picked up issue 1 of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, it probably wouldn't have kept me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But knowing that like Ryan has said that there's good stuff to come, knowing what I've heard about where the comics go and stuff, knowing a little bit more since then about Power Rangers as a whole because of another person I know who's mad into Power Rangers and explained like the entire history of the show and how they all connect to me.
Mhm.
I am more interested, but I wish that it was like a immediate issue 1. Oh man, I'm in 100%, and I'm not 100% in.
Yeah.
But I will continue.
So we have decided to continue with this series. We're going to do the next 2 volumes next because of how short these volumes are.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So it'll be the next volume 2 and volume 3 will be 1 episode, and that will also kind of make it so that we're not doing a million of these.
Yeah.
And that's if we continue it next week because
That
my
is
memory
true.
of this was bad. So let's see how that continues.
Yes. We the show has the caveat of we can stop reading at any time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're giving a wide opportunity for Power Rangers to impress us
Yeah.
completely on a second go.
Yes.
More.
Okay, I don't think we have much more to say. So let's get out of here. What do you guys say?
Here.
All right.
Let's
So,
get out.
I
More
say it's morphin' time.
so next week, as we said, we will be doing the next 2 volumes of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Hopefully, we'll continue till Kyle Higgins leaves the book, but we'll see next week if it does grab us. 2 weeks, sorry. Next time, we'll see what happens. Until then, guys, you can definitely check out the back catalog of the Fake Nerd Book Club. We've got all 3 volumes of all 3 current volumes of Wasted Space. We have a issue on the video on the Pride. We started that and finished in the same episode. But it's a good episode. You should check it out. We've got other shows on this channel. Please make sure to like and subscribe this video. We've got Fake Nerds Watch. We got Basement Arcade. Both have recently finished their stuff. We're talking about new stuff coming. So stay tuned. Click the bell icon for more content to come. This week on the Fake Nerd Podcast, I don't know. We'll figure it out.
We always do.
So stay tuned for all of that cool stuff. Until next week, guys, you can find me at BT McClure on Instagram and Twitter. Ben?
Oh, normally you pick who goes next. You can find me on the internet at BenManga27 on Instagram and Twitter.
Hey, I'm Ryan. You can find me at DJ Tony Snark everywhere.
Hey, I'm Sparks. You can find me probably dabbling in some video games at Sparks Witty on Instagram and Twitter, SPARKZ Witty.
As you can see on the scroll, check out our social media, Fake Nerd Podcast, wherever, fakenerdpodcast.com. Check out the links in the description for some cool stuff, TeePublic, Patreon. Until next time, guys, stay tuned. Stay fake, nerds. With a big black penis.
Mm-hmm. No, that's the microphone. I'm right here.
Ooh. You're black where it counts.
Yes.
I'm
My
gone. I'm
Batman,
leaving.
my Batman T-shirt.
That's
where it
recorded. Ugh.
Oh,
God.
first thing out of the mouth when you hit the record button is about a black penis.
I know what's going after the credits this time.
Don't put it in the back of the credits.
Yeah.
counts. Literally
Where's
about
my copy of Cards Against Humanity? I need to play the card.